Hello, welcome to my ISU seminar, final project of the year. First of all, I'm sorry my voice is really scratchy. I've been sick all week, so there's nothing I can do about it. I chose to do life on Earth and life's dependence on the Earth-Moon system. I sort of became interested in this when we watched one of our video journals from last term. I believe it was called The Earth If There Were No Moon. I found it very interesting, and I kind of wanted to look more into whether life on Earth was fully dependent on the moon. And I came up with yes, it is. Life on Earth depends on the moon and the Earth-Moon system. So a quick overview of what I'm going to be talking about in this presentation. What is the Earth-Moon system? Followed by the formation of life. And we're going to talk about the lunar, atmospheric, and oceanic tides, followed by lunar effects on marine biology, how marine biology depends so much on the moon, how you can't really have marine biology without the moon, the lunar effects on tectonic plates, finally the moon's pull on the Earth's axis, which is probably the biggest one, which definitely helps life on Earth thrive. So what is the Earth-Moon system? I found a lovely scholarly article about what the Earth-Moon system is, from which I found most of my information. So it is called Pulling Together an Understanding of the Earth-Moon system. And most of the information as part of the presentation came from the scholarly article. It proved to be very helpful and gave me a deeper understanding of what the Earth-Moon system is. So the Earth-Moon system is the interaction between two celestial bodies, in this case the Earth and the Moon. So there's a strong gravitational force which affects processes on the Earth. Earth has its own gravitational force that helps hold the moon in orbit, but the gravity from the moon also does affect the Earth in many ways. We'll kind of discover some of those throughout this presentation. One thing to take into consideration when talking about moon's gravity and its effects on the Earth are apogee and perigee. So when the moon is at apogee, it's farthest from the Earth, meaning that its gravitational pull is weaker. When it's at perigee, its gravitational force is stronger. Here we go, a diagram. So for example, like here, you can see the distance is much shorter than over here. So the gravitational pull when it's at apogee will be much less than when it's at perigee. I thought you'd enjoy this little comic. Okay, let's dive into the formation of life and how the moon has helped to evolve life on Earth. It's a very debatable topic, and like most research done about what's happened in the past, it's hard to find solid evidence, solid proof, but most of these are theories. So most of the information found in this section I found from a scholarly article called Fast Tidal Cycling and the Origin of Life. Now just note that not all of the information came directly from this article. There were actually many reports written about the article that proved to be very helpful in doing my research. So the first point here is that tides helped bring life to continental shores. It all kind of began billions of years ago. The moon was much closer to the Earth than its current position. Like as you can see here, the moon is way bigger than it is over here. This is what, in this picture, it's what the moon looks like today. This picture is what the moon would have looked like a long time ago. With the moon at such a close distance, tides were much, much, much stronger, and the rapid cycles of flooding and drying contributed to the creation of life. So this turned out to be very important. Richard Lathe, who I spoke about earlier, he's a scientist who specializes in the study of lunar tides, and in his research he suggested that basically with the tides rushing in and out, the right molecular bonds and strands were able to form this flooding and drying allowed for this to happen and may have contributed to the formation of life. So as Lathe said, tidal areas could have extended several hundreds of kilometers inland. You see this very far out, like lots of open space, but when the tide comes in, it also brings in material from the ocean. As you can see here, like there's rocks and stuff. This might have been here before, but it could have also brought in organisms, and Lathe suggests that these tides are what help to bring organisms onto land. Richard Lathe also suggests that life forms without a moon would have stayed aquatic due to what we just talked about with the tides. So like sorry, I'm really losing my voice. He predicts that if there had been no moon, multicellular organisms would have only been marine life. That would have been the most evolved type of organism on the planet. Okay, now I'm going to talk about the lunar atmospheric and oceanic tides. So when talking about tides, it's important to understand that I don't just mean in the ocean. I mean the atmosphere moves because of the moon. The Earth has also been known to move about 2 centimeters towards the moon. I think that's what scientists have calculated. So here we go. I thought you'd enjoy this little comic. I thought it was cute, and it actually explains perfectly what happens as the moon comes closer to Earth. First, we're going to talk about the continent's coastal lines and tidal budges. So the gravitational pull of the moon actually causes the ocean level to rise. Not only the ocean level, but the atmosphere. So it'll actually bend towards the moon due to the moon's gravity. Since the equator is much closer to the moon, like the middle of the Earth, that is a messed up Earth. That's not really what it looks like. Since the equator here is closer to the moon, it'll pull, leaving the poles pretty stationary, like they don't move. Also, since the equator is closer to the moon, the water in the oceans tends to collect more in this region along the equator, like if the Earth had turned the other way, as opposed to the poles. So the moon kind of balances that, which creates the shape of our continents. So I found a lovely article about this. Here it is. Without the moon, would there be life on Earth? It's called. It's from the Scientific American, and it was written by Bruce Dormany in 2009. So this article kind of explains how the moon helps the tides on Earth, mostly the oceanic tides in our oceans. And it says, it is the moon's gravitational tug that is responsible for the lion's share of this predictable tidal flux. So all these tides are because of this little guy. He has a big effect on our Earth. Here we are, another little comic, because there's so many comics out there about the Earth coming close, the Earth and the moon getting together, and tidal waves. Earth, want to see something cool? Sure, moon. It's my new dance move. Cool. Wonderful. Encore. And bam, tidal waves, because that's what happens when the moon dances. Let's talk about the tidal effects on the Earth's climate. So in Domini's article, she said that without the lunar tides, it's conceivable that climate oscillations from the Ice Age to the interglacial would be less extreme than they are. Such glaciations, I can't say that word, caused migrations of animal and plant species, probably help speed up speciation. So without these glaciers, species probably wouldn't have spread as fast, meaning that it would have taken a lot longer for our world to become populated. Now, a huge one that I found is the lunar effects on marine biology. So I'm not really one for biology, but I thought, why not? Let's just look into it. The biggest one is the coral reef reproduction. Information for this actually came from an article from the New York Times called A World Without Coral Reefs by Roger Bradbury. And it basically explains why coral requires moonlight to produce, as it will only reproduce at night. So a study was done to see how coral reef reacted. It was Orrin Levy who directed it, and they collected pieces of coral from the Heron Islands reef and housed them in like a large aquaria. So some were exposed to sunshine and moonlight, some were shaded at night to block the moonlight, and some had a dim artificial light from like during the night from sunset to midnight, but then in the wee hours of the morning there was no light at all. So they were in complete darkness for some part of it. In the end, they determined that the ones with artificial light needed the moonlight, and they failed to release their gametes, I think they're called, which is what causes them to reproduce. The ones that did have moonlight, totally normal, nothing unexpected happened. They reproduced as normal, and the ones without moonlight at all, they did not reproduce. There was just nothing there. The aquatic species synchronization with the moon cycle. So this section of my report basically gives a bunch of examples of animals who rely a lot on the moon cycle, mostly for reproduction. The Smithsonian.com article, How Moonlight Sets Nature's Rhythms, is where I got most of this information. So the bristle worms, an experiment was conducted with them. They were all put in plastic boxes. They were fed spinach and fish food, and they had an artificial moon cycle going, let's say. They actually found in the end that the worms that did not have the moon did not reproduce, just showing how they were dependent on this moon earth cycle. Another example is the Sazarma crabs in Japan. They scuttle across mountain slopes towards the sea, and when they get to the sea, they release their eggs. They all do that based on the moon cycle. So without the moon cycle, they wouldn't really know when to go lay their eggs. Also, the annual migrations of the Christmas Island crabs here. I didn't know that it was such a big deal until I saw this picture and other pictures on Google. If you just Google Christmas Island crabs, it's insane. I've never seen such a big migration in my life, and they're all just red crabs. So they all move like from the forest to the sea to lay their eggs, and this also has been kind of proven to be linked to the moon changing its intensity as it cycles around the earth. Lunar effects on plate tectonics. This is kind of a very debatable topic. I found an article in the Scientific American that says Earth's tectonic activity may be crucial for life and rare in our galaxy. So it basically explains why the tectonic plates are so important to life on Earth. Some scientists are starting to kind of believe that life on Earth is possible because of these plate tectonics or tectonic plates. I still don't know which word comes first. There's the most accepted theory is of thermal cooling of the Earth, and that drives the movement. But some scientists are realizing that there's a flaw with this. It's not a uniform cooling process, but the plates do move uniformly. So some people are suggesting that the motion is caused by tides and the torque of the Earth turning. Some people believe that it is causing the movement of these plates. And if you look at a lot of the plate movement, they're all moving in the same direction that the Earth rotates. See here? They're all moving, most of them, not all of them. This is sort of the evidence that is used to support this theory. Next, plate tectonics and the possibility of life. Another reason these plate tectonics affect life on Earth is because volcanoes, they're usually created, for the majority, they're created by plate tectonics. Steam is released out of these volcanoes. There's a geothermal system underneath most volcanoes, or it's the seawater being pushed down by subduction underneath the volcano, and it rises up out of the volcano. This steam puts many gases into the air, including water vapor. So this water vapor may have started the oceans on Earth. There are theories about it. It's not really proven yet, but there's an article by Shannon Hall that explains why this might have contributed to the creation of oceans. Lastly, the moon's pull on Earth's axis. This is probably the most important one because without this, I don't believe life on Earth would be possible at all. The moon keeps the Earth at a perfect 23.5 degrees, like this little theta in here is 23.5 degrees. Scientists propose that if our axis was wobbling back and forth, we would have insane climates on Earth, too difficult for humans to adapt to, because it would go from hot to cold to hot to cold. We could have global warming, ice ages. It wouldn't be good. So the stationary axis actually creates the perfect conditions for life. So what can we take from this? Well, life on Earth is dependent on many things, but I think it is very safe to say that if we did not have the moon, we would not have life on Earth. From the very creation of it all to now, there would be no life on Earth if there were no moon. The moon is our friend, and we love you, moon. This is a resource for all my images that I took. The resources for the articles is found at the back of my report. Yeah, that's it. Thanks for watching.